On everybody, I'm Wes Moore. Glad you're with us. Time for another night of more sports. It is the calm before the storm. Things are about to get crazy. The portal opens up in 10 days. If you're a little bit like me, there are a lot of names out there and just kind of overwhelmed with all the names. I thought tonight we'd take a little time, go through some of these names, look at some of the guys that Arkansas hopefully is targeting and maybe have some contact with. Let's get started.
All Arkansas, all sports. It's more sports.
And Kevin Bohannon from hogsports.com. He joins us for another night of more sports. What's up, Kevin? How are you?
Hey, Wes, doing good. Getting ready for all the Christmas festivities. But, hey, let's talk a little Razorback football before we get too into the spirit.
No doubt. The portal will be here before you know it. It didn't hit me until today, and that's why I call this T minus 10 days and counting before that portal season opens. Next Friday is going to be honestly crazy when you see all the comings and goings and more names continue coming into the portal. I want to get into some of the specific players that we think Arkansas need to look at and may have some contact with, and kind of a wish list for some of the fans, a Christmas wish list for some of the fans. I got to stop at the top. My number one wish list, gotta have, will make me a very, very happy on January 2nd, is Carius Kern, the offensive lineman from Marion that went to LSU. That's in the portal, going to play possibly one more game with LSU this weekend. I know he's there working out, but this to me, I hate to say must get, Kevin, but man, it sure would be a great way to start the portal if you can announce that Carius Kern's coming to Arkansas.
Yeah, you don't want to miss on Kern considering he's from Arkansas, from Marion. He was committed to the Razorbacks at one time, and you saw what Ryan Silverfield was able to do in a short 48-hour period, 48-hour span with getting TJ Hodges, Anthony Kennedy, Danny Beal, Ja'Cory Smith, all flipped over from their respective schools that they were committed to and got them in the fold for the early signing period. So you got to think that with the resources that Arkansas has had, we've seen an example of that. The 13 or 14 coaches that they've announced hirings of, including their coordinators Ron Roberts and Tim Cramsey. Roberts is going to be the first $2 million coach in Arkansas history. So financial commitment, it has been seen. It's more quantity over quality in some people's minds. We'll see the on-field result with that. But you got to think Carius Kern is that top target. I know there are a lot of outlets out there. Personally, I hope you go to 24/7 Sports to check out all the portal rankings. And Kern is the top tackle in the portal right now. The 24/7 has him as a 4-star coming out. He's the top tackle on the board.
Let's stay in the trenches because to me, and I think to you and anyone who loves college football, football general, that's where games are won and lost.
Yep. It is. If you look at what Arkansas needs, they need to fill in their tackles. They need bookends. No matter who the quarterback is, whether it be KJ Jackson or somebody from the portal, you're going to need a right tackle and left tackle. We know that Carius Kern has played both positions for LSU, so that makes him very versatile. They can slot him at right or left tackle, depending on his strength. And Arkansas will figure that out. They've got 2 new offensive line coaches that are going to be figuring that out. And one of the offensive coaches, Coach Myers, is going to be the run game coordinator. So right now I see it where Arkansas needs to get 2 tackles. All right, they're going to have Caden Kittler at center, Branham at right guard, and I think Marion Harris moves over to left guard. Okay, that's where I think he's going to be real comfortable at. Where he's not out on an island. I think he's agile and athletic enough to where he can move, pull, and be a good zone run blocker in Tim Cramsey's scheme. So that's where I think Marion Harris moves. Kern could slot in at a tackle. Karsten Cassidy from UConn would be somebody I would look at as a high target coming out of the transfer portal. I like his game. I like his tape. He's looked really good. And, of course, he played for Jim Mora. Somebody that has a really good, resume as far as coaching up players and getting them to the NFL. And of course, he's coached in the NFL. So, and then you look at the defensive side of the ball. You have to replace Cam Ball. You got as of right now, Ian Jaffard. You got to be able to build around Quincy Rhodes. Whether it's a 3 down front, 4 down front, you're going to have to get at least 2, maybe 3 or 4 defensive linemen out of the portal this year.
I like the big kid from Florida, and I hope Ron Robertson playing in his defense and a relationship there could be enough to get him. But Micah Boro, I think this is a guy that Arkansas should be targeting on that defensive line.
Yeah, he's a big guy. You had 27 tackles this year, which, it's not a lot, but, he play, defensive linemen don't get a whole lot of tackles, So he is ranked the number 5 defensive tackle right now. He's actually one spot behind Ian Jaffard. On tape, though, I put Burrow above Jaffard just based on what I've seen, and I watched Ian Jaffard just about every down he played this year. Jaffard is a 20 to 30 type, play a game guy to where that's going to be his sweet spot. Burrow's got a little bit higher motor. He's built different, a little bit lower to the ground, good base. I think he could be a good run stopper in the middle of that Roberts defense.
Let's stay on defense since we're talking defense right now. And there's some guys in the portal or that said they're going to enter the portal from Memphis. And there are a couple of those that I think are SEC players. And I sure think Silverfield will know if they're SEC players. But there are a couple of safeties that I'm intrigued about that have entered the portal from Memphis. And one of them, came out as a top 50 recruit, went to Florida State, and then went to Arizona State, or went to Florida, then Arizona State. But this Wilson guy, Kamari Wilson, I think he can play in the SEC.
Yeah, he's very familiar with new Arkansas secondary coach, DeRon Wilson. He was there as quality control coach while Kamari was there in the secondary at Florida. So another guy that I would look at, DeMarco Ward. He had 66 tackles. He had 2 pick six. He's kind of a hybrid guy. He came out as a linebacker. They moved him to safety. I think he plays better closer to the line of scrimmage. Think of a jack position or a star position. I'm not really sure what Ron Roberts, his terminology for his hybrid, not so much a nickel guy that's a real quick guy, but somebody that could play kind of a jack position as a stand-up linebacker. He can also cover tight ends, running backs, not necessarily be on the edge like a cornerback or a free safety, but kind of a strong safety slash, outside linebacker type build, 6'1", 6'2", long, lean, and can blitz as well. Ron Roberts is going to put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks next year. He's going to make offenses guess where the blitzes are coming from every down. That's one thing I like about Roberts. So that's DeMarco Ward's one that you can look at. Another guy talking about linebackers, Everett Russaw was an Arkansas commit at one point. The previous coaching staff decided that they want to go a different direction. Russaw ended up at UAB. Once, his time there, he decided to hit the portal. He went to Memphis, had a good year. And then Memphis's leading tackler, I think Brumfield, if I'm not mistaken, is his name, hit the portal as well. So just about every defensive guy that Arkansas could target from Memphis is now in the portal.
You mentioned every guy I had written down, but Chris Bracey, Memphis safety, had 9 passes broken up, had an interception this year. They have to replace a lot in the secondary, and they need to replace a lot in the secondary. But I think that's another candidate they should look at.
Yeah. And look, Memphis's defense didn't set the world on fire. They're ranked 53rd in the nation in terms of points allowed this year. Arkansas's pass defense was in the 109, I believe. So, you got Caleb Wooten. He's gone. Larry Worth, the third, he's exhausted his eligibility. So, Miguel Mitchell's the only returning safety right now. So, you're going to have to go in and get some guys. And, you can play 3 on the field at one time now. Defenses have evolved. With the RPO game on offense, you got to have guys that can move and tackle in space. So look at them to go heavy on the secondary in the portal when it opens on the 2nd.
I got one more defensive guy I wanted to discuss with you, and this one's from Auburn. He's an edge rusher, Amaris Williams. He was a top 65 recruit, top 150 by another recruiting service. Out of the 2024 class. I just wonder if some of those Auburn ties could help get Williams, an edge guy that would be beneficial in this defense, to look at Arkansas.
It could. And, speaking of Auburn, Robert Woodyard, the all-SEC linebacker from Auburn, hit the portal as well. But another Auburn guy on the offensive side, which we'll talk about in just a second, has had ties to Arkansas already. There are some outlets that are reporting Malcolm Simmons on the wide receiver position. Kentucky and Arkansas are a couple of schools that could be on the lookout for them. But Arkansas is going to have to get get it right at the linebacker position this time. We heard a lot about Xavier Sorey Jr., Steven Dix coming back. Those were the two that were returning starters in 2025, and they played below their potential. So they're going to have to get it right. Look, Bradley Shaw and Wyatt Simmons were very good for Arkansas down the stretch. They played with a high motor. They've got a lot of work to do in the offseason if they want to be starters in the SEC. So if you can get at least 3 out of the portal, you're going to have a decent linebacker room come spring practice.
Yeah, you'd love to see Simmons and Bradley Shaw take that next step, but you can't count on it. You can hope they'll take that next step. So that's why you got to bring in some competition. And maybe they do. And they start next year, and then you have some depth at linebacker. But just to make sure you have enough quality SEC linebackers, you got to go out and sign some guys.
You do. You definitely do. And that's one of the things. You want to breed competition as well. That's one of the things. If you go back and look at how the roster was constructed last year, they brought in a lot of guys to hopefully breed competition within, especially the running back position. They brought in Mike Washington to compete with Braylon Russell. They had to restock the wide receiver room, and you saw some of the guys that really kind of separated themselves during the season. So Ishmael Sissy will be back at Arkansas this next year. That's good for the wide receiver room. Not much is going to be back after him. You got Antonio Jordan, C.J. Brown. Hopefully Jalen Brown is back. That was a pretty bad injury. You can't count on that, though. That's just like the injury he had, Wes, is comparable to a Tommy John. That's going to be at least a year rehab to see if he can get back on the field. And that was in the Notre Dame game, so you can't count on him for spring ball and maybe even early in the preseason. So they've got to stock up at just about every position, but it's going to be heavy on the defensive side. One defensive back we did not touch on was Kanye Thompson out of Slippery Rock. He's the one that really kind of caught the world by storm with his speed. And the speed is one thing you can't teach. That's a God-given ability. You think he's Jordan Anthony fast, folks. He's 10-1 in the 100, 10-1-3. That's Olympic level speed right there. That's getting it. That's going. That's a 4.3, 4.35 type runner. When you're talking about a 40. I know they like to measure with the catapult in the miles per hour. I haven't seen that, but that's a mid 22, maybe 23. Right there on the catapult. But Thompson was all conference performer out of Slippery Rock. Had 60 tackles, had 4 forced fumbles, 5 tackles for loss. The teams didn't throw at him very much because he's fast. He's fast and he can cover. We've seen some guys that are fast and can't cover really well. Think of Darius Winston from Helena, West Helena. That man had speed. He was 4.37, 4.35 all day, but he would get torched quite a bit. So from what I've seen on film so far, Thompson is going to be making that step. He's already reportedly has 30 offers. And we'll make a visit to Arkansas January 3rd and 4th, which is the first weekend when the portal opens.
Let's talk about some offensive guys. And, of course, there are a couple big names from Memphis, and you would expect if Silverfield wants to take some of these guys with him to Arkansas, that opportunity will be there. They'll be familiar with Cramsey's offense. Sutton Smith, the running back. Let's start with him because over 1,000 all-purpose yards this year, 8 touchdowns. We saw what he did against Arkansas. I think he can play in the SEC.
Absolutely. He was the one that put the nail in the coffin for Sam Pittman. He had that 55-yard run on the outside zone. Xavier Sorey whiffed on a tackle right there, and Smith was off to the races. Before that point, he had been kind of bottled up in the game, but that one really did it. The key for Smith is he is dangerous in the return game as well. He returned kicks for Memphis this year. He can even be used as a punt returner if needed. He's kind of a change of pace back. He's not somebody that's going to get 20 to 25 carries a game, but not very many backs do anymore, Wes. You look at Mike Washington, he had over 1,000 yards, but he never had more than 19 carries in a game. He never hit the 20 mark. So if you can get 2 or 3 backs, David Johnson likes to use multiple backs in his system. At Florida State, he used 5. He had a 5-man rotation. But that just means somebody didn't step up and take the reins. Mike Washington did this past season. I think Sutton Smith could be a guy that gets 140, 150 carries. At that rate, he's averaging 6 yards a carry, 5.5. He's a 750, 800-yard back at Arkansas, I believe.
Today, it was announced that Jamari Hawkins, a wide receiver for Memphis, plans to enter the portal. And funny story, we were watching this game last week, the bowl game with North Carolina State. And Hawkins makes a catch over the middle, breaks a tackle, spinning tackle, then splits two defenders, shows some speed, and scores a touchdown. I was like, who is this number 9? Does he have any eligibility left? Sure enough, he does. Today's in the portal. I'd love to see Hawkins come to Arkansas.
Yeah, him and Cortez Branham were the two for Memphis that Arkansas really had to key on back in September. I think he's not overly huge, but he has good start and stop speed, a good route runner. Cramsey's offense is more West Coast based in terms of they're going to stretch you horizontally. So you got to cover some mesh routes. You got to cover some whip routes to, out routes. They can stretch the field vertically, but they are really good in space. I think Hawkins would fit really well. Another receiver, I mentioned him a second ago, Malcolm Simmons, was second on Auburn's team in receiving yards this year. He's going to be in the portal. I think he's going to have 2 years remaining. From what I've seen, Kentucky and Arkansas are the ones that are hot and heavy on him right now. And Wes, overall, it's good to hear when SEC players or P4 players are coming out that Arkansas is getting mentioned as being early in on these guys. In the past, it wouldn't be like that. It would be later on in the process, especially skill guys. Skill guys are really big. So far, and what I've seen is Josh Ford from Oklahoma State is the only player that has announced a commitment. He's going to Alabama. He's a tight end. Another tight end to look out for, Randy Pittman Jr. He was from Florida State. He was a top tight end a couple of years ago, with David Johnson coming over. There's a little bit of a connection there. CJ Baxter, running back from Texas. He was committed to Florida State at one time, went to Texas. Hasn't done a whole lot for the Longhorns. I think he had 800 yards total in 2 or 3 years. So look out for him. And, of course, Sutton Smith we talked about. Jaden Ball from Florida. Now, this is a wish right here. He was an all-SEC back. Florida's going to try to keep him, but as of right now, he's in the portal. John Summerall, Buster Faulkner, they're going to do everything they can to keep him in the fold. But Jaden Ball, he's got some Florida connections on Arkansas staff right now. Maybe there's something to that.
How about quarterback? We talked about A.J. Hill from Memphis. He was a highly recruited guy, played a little bit, of course, played against Arkansas. Think that would be a good idea to bring him into the fold?
Yeah, I really think Arkansas needs to bring somebody in that will push KJ. Obviously, you can't bring in Dylan Raiola or Byron Brown from USF, who had 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. Those guys are going to command $3 to $5 million. The going rate is going from 2 to 3, maybe up to 4 to 5 this year. That's the early returns, and the market cap is going to be about $5 million on a top-tier quarterback. Arkansas doesn't need to do that. They need to bring in somebody that can compete with KJ Jackson and maybe open his eyes to a few things. A.J. Hill can do that. He knows Tim Cramsey's offense. He's more of a runner in terms of dual threat right now. He did get in the NC State bowl game. He was 6 of 7 for 48 yards. It's a lot of short passes in Tim Cramsey's offense. They don't really stretch it like Bobby Petrino's offense does with a vertical passing game. They want to let their playmakers do things in space, so they get it out quick, a lot of quick passes, a lot of out routes, a lot of flat routes, slants, things over the middle like that. So 19 of 32 this year. There's not a lot of tape on his throwing motion, but he can carry a 390-pound man 7 yards for a first down. So I think that'll, that opened my eyes right there. He's big, physical, 6'4", 220, which is about the size KJ Jackson is right now. And as you mentioned earlier, you've had a KJ, now you got another KJ. Why not get an AJ?
Any other players that you have your eye on? That's my list. You've knocked everything out.
Yeah, Toby Asun-Sanmi, Kansas State. He's an edge rusher, kind of keep an eye on. I know Arkansas had recruited him before. He's going to be a 4-star transfer portal guy. We talked about Hawkins, talked about Cassidy from UConn. Those are the ones that, really right now that so you look at, there's over 1,000 guys in the portal right now that have announced their intentions. And the weird thing is, believe it or not, Arkansas has only lost like 3 or 4. The ones that you look at, Shaq McCroy. McCroy wasn't going to be a good fit for the offense. He's more of a gap scheme guy as far as run blocking and a pass protector. Zone blocking, he's not really going to fit good at a tackle position. So he kind of saw that writing on the wall, and he's going to move on. And then you lost Davila, who was the number 1 JUCO cornerback that came out last year. yeah, it could be a loss, but we'll see. Depending on what Arkansas gets out of the portal, but they've only lost 3 so far, and they've got 77 on the roster. I still put the over and under about 60, Wes. I think you're gonna because you're gonna have 20, about 30 to come in right now out of the portal, and I still think there's some attrition. I think they'll end up with around 55, 60 new names on the roster for 2026.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. We had a couple of comments, and that's one of them right here from Ricky. He says the portal window should be crazy with the SEC finally expanding the scholarship limits. There should be a lot of signings and turnovers. And you think that number's around 30 in that 2-week portal window?
Yeah, I do right now, and it's the weird thing is, and Trey Biddy did an article today, and it was an outstanding article on the real transfer portal. What it really is. It's already been open. There's no tampering. Everybody saw Jeff Traylor's comments in his interview from last week go viral about, players being tampered with. Clemson's playing without 28 players this week. 19 of those are supposedly injured. 9 are opting out of the bowl game. Well, Texas San Antonio, they were playing with the shell of themselves. Memphis was the same way. Now, Memphis may have been a reaction to Silverfield leaving as opposed to those players getting poached or tampered with. But there's no tampering now. I mean, unless the NCAA does something about it and gets somebody for it, there's no tampering. There's back channels that you can do to get with players and talk to their representatives. They have agents now. So deals are being done right now, and it'll be a tsunami once it comes on January 2nd.
It's a question from Tyrone. Any shot Trickett brings Cam Cook and DeAndre Johnson from Jacksonville State?
It's a good question right there. I really like the hire of Trickett. Of course, it was being debated at that point. I know it had leaked out that Arkansas may have gone after an in-state coach at UCA. Nathan Brown may have been moving to Fayetteville as the quarterback coach. He elected to stay at UCA. They had a backup playing ready to go, Clint Trickett. Yep. Of course, he played at Florida State under Jimbo Fisher, was on Last Chance U on Netflix. He was the quarterback coach at East Mississippi under Buddy over there, EMCC. And then he made his way up, kind of got in the coaching world. Of course, his dad was a coach at Florida State, very well-respected coach over the past 3 decades. And I think Trickett works really well. He worked his way up. He was a co-OC, quarterback coach, receiver coach. And then he was the OC at Jacksonville State this year. So if you bring in some of those guys like that can, really make a difference in Arkansas's offense, I think they'll definitely give them a look.
There's a question from Ricky. Need to bring in some absolute monsters. We were plenty weak when it counted. What do we know about the new strength and conditioning coach? What have you heard about him?
Yeah, great question, Ricky. The biggest thing that I know about our new strength and conditioning coordinator is he has NFL experience, and he has designed and created workout conditioning training plans from the ground up, and he likes to individualize the training plan aspect of it. So, between me and Wes, we are going to develop at different rates, being at different ages, different body types. So he would have a separate workout plan for Wes as he would for me. And that's something that, you can't put all these guys in a cookie cutter situation to maximize their performance. He does a really good job, and he's very versatile at developing those types of plans. So it's going to be a lot different from Ben Souders. And the offense especially is going to be very agile, very quick, and they're going to work on fast twitch muscles. They want to get out in space, make plays, be explosive, and that starts up front in the line. If the line can be explosive and get to their blocks in that zone running scheme, I think you'll really see a difference of that early on.
Let's take another question real quick. Brady says they have Grayson and Trevor Jackson. If he stays, wasn't he a 5-star out of high school? So basically saying they already got 2 quarterbacks. Is there really a need to bring in another quarterback?
And the reason I say you bring in another quarterback, maybe from the FCS level that has starting experience, that could really maybe open up a few things for KJ Jackson. When you bring in somebody else, that, the inner competitive desire of a quarterback or any player that plays competitive sports, it goes up a notch. Okay, I got to be on my game. It makes you sharper. The attention to detail picks up. You're wanting to study a little bit more. You're wanting to do things. When I went into college, I had a all-conference quarterback in front of me, but the backup position was open. There was a sophomore that was there that really couldn't move out of sight in a day, and then there were 5 freshmen. So I knew I could be a backup quarterback my freshman year on campus and get in and play. So I knew what I had to do every day. And if you bring in somebody that has starting experience, and even if it's at the FCS level, they've been on the field, they know how to go through everything. Even though KJ Jackson does have one start and got some time in the Texas game as well, he got extended time against Texas and Missouri. It's going to help the room. Will Grayson Wilson ever play at Arkansas? I'm not sure. Trevor Jackson was the 3rd quarterback for most of the year. When the depth chart was released, it was Trevor Jackson that was on there. Wilson didn't make some trips. So, I think Trevor Jackson, he's athletic. He can move. He was at Florida State. Got a good arm. What does he have between the ears? That's the one thing we don't know right now.
Yeah, and he's a year older than Grayson.
Yeah.
And can't forget he was a true freshman.
Yeah.
It does matter. I think more than anything for that backup quarterback or a quarterback, somebody just to push KJ, just to keep him working hard every single day so he doesn't think, and I know he's not this kind of kid, but it is human nature, the job is mine. And you want him working as hard as possible because somebody is right behind him pushing him to be good. And the other thing is, chances are, very good chance, he's going to get hurt. Yeah. And you got to have somebody that's capable of coming in and taking over the offense and still give you an opportunity to win with the backup quarterback. We see it every year in the SEC. We see it at Arkansas. You have to have a good backup.
Yeah, and if you're going to have design quarterback runs, especially with the dual threat quarterback, that I don't think there'll be more design runs as there was this year with Taylon Green. But there is a zone read aspect to Cramsey's offense, but he does have a more drop back package. Seth Hennigan passed for 14,000 yards at Memphis. So they've thrown for 270 per game. They've thrown for 225, 230 per game, and leaned more on the rushing attack. So he's going to craft the offense to the personnel, and whoever's there is how the offense will be built from the ground up.
K-Bo, great stuff, man. I appreciate you coming on. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, everybody. I know us girl dads have a lot of fun this time of the year.
It's going to be awesome. Next couple days are great. Thanks, man. See you soon. It's Kevin Bohannon. Check him out, hogsports.com. They do a great job over there. Just like our friends at Gwatney Buick GMC, they do a great job. And the 12 days of Christmas are starting to wind down. They have some awesome deals on cars, crossovers, trucks, 4-wheel drive SUVs. These aren't just manager specials. These cars were handpicked by Jamie Cobb himself. Plus, if you're looking for something new, Gwatney Buick GMC is delivering with the 2026 GMC Sierra at 0% financing. Acadia's at 1.9%, Terrain's at $279 a month. And business owners, listen up. You have just a few more days until the end of the year. Gwatney Buick GMC has qualifying vehicles ready to help you save on taxes. Sierras, Yukons, and more are ready to provide you that deduction that you're going to need come tax time. It's the 12 deals of Christmas only at Gwatney Buick GMC, 5700 Landers Road in North Little Rock. Call them, 945-4444. It's GwatneyBuickGMC.com. GMC, we are professional grade. It was an outstanding night. Big thanks to Kevin Bohannon for coming on. Big thanks to you guys for listening and watching the show tonight. I hope you have a great Christmas. Kind of the plans over the next couple of days. Got some interviews that have been taped over at the Hootens.com at their end of the year awards. Was able to talk with a lot of coaches, players, and media personalities. We're going to play some of those interviews over the next couple of days. So when you're kind of bored, just sitting around the house looking for something to do, sneak over to More Sports on YouTube and watch some of the videos that we'll have over the next couple of days. And check out some of the videos from earlier this week, last week, some really good interviews. Kevin Bohannon and I talked about Carius Kern earlier. That video took off. TJ Hodges had a great conversation with him. Danny Beal, both future Razorbacks. It was fun to meet those guys. If you haven't seen those videos yet, go back and look at More Sports and check out those interviews. I really do believe it's worth your time to check those out. While you're there, give me the thumbs up on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. 2026 is going to be huge. We got some big things planned for high school basketball, of course, Razorback basketball. It's going to be a fun January, February, and March, hopefully. And Arkansas basketball rolls into April. But we're just getting started. I appreciate you guys being here tonight. Have a great Christmas. We will see you soon for more sports.
All Arkansas, all sports.